So the Nets obviously just got swept, and it's because of Kevin Durant. And I'm about to call this dude an idiot for 8 minutes straight, but please know, I think KD is one of the smartest people we have in the NBA. Like, he completely blew my mind the other day when he explained why Boston fans actually hate Kyrie so much.
It's rooted in love. They once loved you, they once cheered for you and bought your merchandise. Life-altering experiences coming to games, watching you play. When it kind of gets ripped from them from just something like a trade, they feel like a piece of them is gone too. People have emotions, and sometimes it gets a little dark and deep, but that's just how the human brain works.
That is so brilliant, which is why it's so weird that he has the lowest career IQ in the game. This man chose for his career Kyrie Irving to be his best teammate. How are you gonna bet your career on the most flaky, unreliable star in basketball? The one thing that he did do right was leave Russell Westbrook. Everyone Russ has played with has regretted it down the road, and KD was smart enough to get out of OKC. But then he chose Golden State. I mean, I know he won 2 rings there, but did he not know joining the 73-win Warriors was a horrible look? It literally made him the most hated and disrespected man in the NBA. We could literally look at KD memes for an hour just based on that decision. Like, the reason he wanted to go there was to compete for championships. By the way, it wasn't much of a competition. They easily beat everyone. But no one was gonna respect that, joining a super team. And the worst part is, KD was the only person who couldn't see that. Like, the whole world knew it was a cheap move except for KD. And then when the world treated him like a villain, he was surprised. Why does everyone hate me? And then he turned into like a sensitive, angry dude who was lashing out at fans. So to prove himself to everyone, he left the Warriors for Brooklyn. And choosing Brooklyn wasn't the problem. He could have probably chosen anywhere on a sign and trade or stayed with the Dubs. The problem was KD, the GM. He chose Kyrie Irving over Steph Curry. How dumb of a career move can you make? We all knew who Kyrie was at that point. Based on his awful leadership with the Celtics young players, we all knew except Kevin Durant. Like, the only guy who couldn't see it. So he chose Kyrie over the most self-aware and humble star in the game. And then what did they do at center? Pay DeAndre Jordan 4 years, $40 million, because the only person who couldn't see he was washed was KD. Then, during the year, they forced DeAndre Jordan to start over Jarrett Allen, who's become one of the best young centers. It's almost like KD was trying to ruin his own career on purpose. That is how dumb these decisions were. Then that offseason, they could have chose almost any coach out there. Ime Udoka, who's turned the C's around. Jason Kidd, who's turned the Mavs around. Or Ty Lue, one of the smartest coaches in the game. Yes, Shams even reported at the time, all of those coaches would have joined the Nets, but they chose Steve Nash. What the And look, I respect Steve Nash on like a lot of levels, but it's pretty clear he is not an elite head coach. After that, they traded everything to get James Harden, who isn't exactly, you know, playoff proven. It was kind of like saying, defense? Who needs defense? Then when Harden, shocker, gave up on them, KD signed off on getting Ben Simmons. And again, everyone in the world knew Ben Simmons was a disaster, except Kevin Durant. Woj has reported when Ben suddenly pulled out of Game 4 against the Celtics, the Nets were disappointed and surprised. Was anyone surprised? Apparently Kevin Durant was, which, by the way, is becoming a pattern. Dude just doesn't get it. So why would you let a guy like that run your team? Well, it's because the Nets allowed him to. And okay, like if you're a team that has been to the playoffs one time in 6 years, and then Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving say, we want to join your team, you say yes. Like, I get that. But they do actually have a smart GM named Sean Marks. He learned from Greg Popovich when he was on the Spurs, and he already made like really smart moves turning around that team. The D'Angelo Russell deal, as much as I don't like D'Lo, that helped them turn the roster around. He hired Kenny Atkinson, who is the perfect head coach for a young squad. Then every single move they have made since was approved by Kevin Durant. But now, after the disaster GM job that KD has done, I don't think teams are gonna let superstars call the shots. Even LeBron James, who has the highest basketball IQ in the game, chose Russell Westbrook. So if he can't get it right, then maybe being a GM takes more than being great at basketball? Like, remember Sean Marks of the Nets? He was a scrub in the league. Look at David Griffin, like physically. Like, this dude would get beat up at LA Fitness, right? But he has turned the Pelicans around, even with AD demanding a trade and Zion in street clothes. And look, I have ripped David Griffin before, but dude is a really good team builder. That's pretty obvious. So, new rule, YouTubers and active NBA stars should not be GMs. But that is the way that the NBA has been run now for years. Ever since LeBron went back to Cleveland, he got to choose his head coach on the Cavs, who got fired, who got hired. He got to choose his teammates. Kawhi chose the Clippers because they were going to get Paul George, but the era of player empowerment is going to start to end. Between KD just botching the Nets and LeBron choosing Russ, I think teams are going to stop allowing stars to be their GM. That's not how Miami did it with LeBron. He wanted Pat Riley to come down from the front office and coach because, Eric Spoelstra wasn't good. Remember when he shoulder checked Spo in 2010? That was sending a message, but Pat Riley was like, no, I know how to run a team, you don't. And Spo stayed the coach and he ended up being one of the best. It's like Magic Johnson when he became the head coach of the Lakers or ran the team. He failed. Being a great player does not mean you're gonna succeed at everything, like Kevin Durant. His legacy is gonna be a top 10 talent who ruined his own career by making the dumbest decisions we have ever seen. And because of that, and this whole Ben Simmons mess, I think player empowerment is gonna start to change to team empowerment. It'll be official when the CBA expires in a couple of years. I think team owners are going to require guys to actually play to get paid. Imagine that. It could be like the Ben Simmons rule or the Kyrie rule. And I think they will crack down on player empowerment. Teams that are successful right now are like the Suns and the Grizzlies and the Bucks, teams with homegrown superstars. And I'm not saying don't go get stars in free agency, but KD has proven that being a great player does not make you a great GM. So what should the Nets do now? There are so many interesting options that they have here in the offseason. So if you're watching this the day after it's posted, right here will be the Nets offseason video. But if you're watching this the day it's dropped, then check out the offseason playlist. We've done the Lakers, we've done the Thunder, we've done the Rockets. Got a whole playlist.